What if I told you the United States has now paused billions of dollars in weapons shipments, global oil markets are on edge, fighter jets are already positioned across the Middle East, and behind closed doors, negotiations between Washington and Tehran may be hanging by a thread. Tonight, the situation surrounding the US-Iran war appears more dangerous, more complicated, and more unpredictable than at any point so far. A major revelation emerged from Washington after a top US Navy official confirmed that America has temporarily halted a massive $14 billion arms package meant for Taiwan. The reason? According to Acting Navy Secretary Hung Sao, the United States wants to preserve critical munitions for its military operations against Iran. Speaking during a Senate hearing, Sao told lawmakers that the administration is making sure it has enough weapons stockpiled for what officials are calling epic fury. While he insisted the United States still has sufficient supplies, the decision signals just how seriously Washington is preparing for the possibility of a prolonged conflict. The move came only days after the Taiwan weapons deal reportedly became a central issue during discussions between President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping in Beijing, raising concerns that tensions in the Middle East could now begin affecting the balance of power in Asia as well. But the military situation is only one side of the crisis. Across Europe, fears are growing over what this conflict could do to the global economy. France's finance minister Roland Lescure revealed that world governments are now struggling to decide whether they should release additional emergency oil reserves to stabilize energy markets shaken by the war. According to Lescure, leaders still don't know how long the conflict may continue, making it extremely difficult to decide whether emergency reserves should be used now or saved for an even bigger crisis later. Even if the Strait of Hormuz eventually reopens, Lescure warned that it could still take weeks before oil supplies fully reach Europe and Asia again. And that's exactly why the Strait of Hormuz has become one of the biggest points of tension in negotiations between Iran and the United States. Behind the scenes, diplomatic talks are continuing, but the situation appears deeply unstable. 1 hour, reports claim that negotiators are making serious progress toward a ceasefire. The next hour, new reports suggest major disagreements still remain unresolved. Iranian officials say they are currently reviewing fresh American proposals and will respond through Pakistani mediators. Pakistan's Interior Minister Mohsin Naqvi has now spent several days in Tehran trying to bridge the gap between both sides. Interestingly, Pakistan's Army Chief Asim Munir, who many expected to arrive in Tehran earlier, has still not appeared. Many analysts believe Munir will only travel there once negotiations move significantly closer to a breakthrough agreement. But despite ongoing diplomacy, several major issues remain deadlocked. Iran is demanding a complete and immediate end to military operations before moving forward. The United States, however, reportedly wants any ceasefire to happen gradually and remain tied to the progress of negotiations. Another massive disagreement centers around control over the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most important shipping routes on Earth, responsible for transporting more than 30% of global energy supplies. Iran reportedly wants expanded sovereignty over the waterway, while the United States and regional powers strongly oppose the idea. Tehran is also demanding the return of all frozen Iranian assets currently held abroad. Meanwhile, Washington is reportedly insisting that Iran shut down nearly all of its nuclear facilities except one site in Tehran and commit to zero uranium enrichment. American negotiators are also demanding that Iran transfer more than 400 kilograms of enriched uranium out of the country, something Iranian officials continue to reject completely. As tensions rise, Pakistan's mediation efforts have become increasingly important. According to Iranian media reports, Mohsin Naqvi recently met Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi to review the latest proposals aimed at resolving the remaining disagreements between Tehran and Washington. But while diplomats continue negotiating behind closed doors, public opinion inside the United States is also beginning to shift dramatically. A new poll from the New York Times and Siena College shows that nearly 3/4 of Democratic voters now oppose military aid to Israel, a massive increase compared to just 3 years ago. The survey also found that a growing number of Democratic voters believe their party has become too supportive of Israel, while nearly all respondents opposed the US-Israel war on Iran. At the same time, Violence across the region continues to escalate. In the occupied West Bank, Israeli forces carried out fresh overnight military raids across multiple Palestinian towns. According to reports, troops entered Al-Qada near Bethlehem, blocking roads and deploying throughout residential neighborhoods. In Beit Fajjar, several residents reportedly suffered breathing difficulties after Israeli forces fired tear gas and sound grenades during another operation. Meanwhile, in Yabad near Jenin, Israeli troops reportedly raided homes and briefly detained former Palestinian prisoner Hazem Amana after allegedly assaulting him during the incursion. The conflict is also intensifying along Lebanon's southern border. Israel's military claimed responsibility for airstrikes that killed 2 people near the border region. Earlier attacks reportedly targeted a health center in the town of Hanawiya inside Lebanon's Tyre district, killing 4 people and injuring 2 paramedics. Lebanese authorities later confirmed the strike, increasing fears that the conflict could spread even further across the region. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry strongly condemned new U.S. sanctions placed on Mohammad Reza Shaibani, Iran's ambassador-designate to Lebanon, along with several Lebanese figures accused by Washington of obstructing peace efforts and interfering with Hezbollah disarmament plans. Elsewhere in France, Palestinian activist Rami Shath is now reportedly facing the possibility of losing his residency permit due to his activism in support of Palestinian rights. French officials claim Shath represents a threat to public order, despite the fact that he currently lives in France with his wife and daughter. Back in the Gulf region, the U.S. military says its forces remain at maximum readiness. America's Central Command released new footage showing advanced fighter jets launching from the USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier stationed in the Arabian Sea. U.S. officials stated that American forces remain fully prepared while continuing operations surrounding Iranian ports. The military display came as President Trump once again warned Tehran that extremely severe consequences could follow if Iran refuses to surrender its uranium stockpiles. Iranian officials, however, continue accusing the United States of committing war crimes during earlier military operations. Tehran specifically condemned an American strike on the Pasteur Medical Research Institute earlier this year, calling the attack a blatant violation of international law. And now, for the first time since the ceasefire, the Iranian Red Crescent Society has released dramatic footage showing rescue workers pulling civilians from collapsed buildings following U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. The scenes reveal entire residential structures reduced to rubble as emergency teams desperately search for survivors buried underneath the destruction. According to the organization, more than 7,200 people were rescued alive during the war, before the ceasefire finally took effect on April 8. Tonight, despite ongoing negotiations, the Middle East remains dangerously close to a much larger regional explosion. Military forces remain on high alert, global markets are under pressure, and behind closed doors, the future of the region may now depend on whether diplomacy can move faster than the war itself.